break out and see. Can you hear me a bit better now? If the sound is a bit better. I do have a mic on, but it's maybe not working too well. Sorry everyone for the technical issues. Let's see. Okay, cool. I think that's a bit better, and then I can just turn the sound. Sorry about that. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better. Perfect. Thanks for your feedback, everyone. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I'm a qualified nutritionist, and I've had a few roles in my time, from working in nutrition research, and I've worked through health food stores, and now I've been working with Avogo for the last 4 years. So we are a herbal remedies company, primarily, but in line with some of the ethics and the views of our founder, Alfred Vogel, we are very holistic in our approach to health. So it's not all about the supplements by any means, but also about doing everything that we can in terms of our diet and lifestyle, in order to make us as healthy as possible. So today I've just come live to do a little talk around the topic of tiredness and fatigue. So working as a nutritionist, and I'm quite sure it's the same in doctor surgeries, but certainly is the case throughout health food stores and on our helpline at Avogo. Tiredness and fatigue is a common symptom and a common problem that people obviously want to try and regulate. So up there with weight issues, people attempting to regulate their body weight, I would say tiredness and fatigue is one of the top symptoms that people struggle with and want some help with. So I just thought it'd be a nice topic to start with for my first live session. But I'm hoping to do other live sessions over the coming months, and hopefully some of the other health advisors at Avogo will be doing some as well. Just so we can interact a bit more with you guys on different health topics, and it means you can ask your questions and comment live at the time, and I can have a chat with you all. But also I should say that if you are watching this after, if you're watching the replay, then you can still comment and we will get back to you. Also, I'll put up a link that you can click on, and it'll take you through a form, and you can submit your questions that way. And then we'll get back to you. I'll try my best to get back to you, or one of our health advisors, to answer all your questions. So that's the kind of generic bits out the way. So now I'll just start running through the topic at hand. And please just comment, say hi, say where you're from, and ask any questions along the way. And I can see your comments coming in, so I can be sure to try and answer them as we go. So first of all, when we think about tiredness and fatigue, one of the first reasons, so I'm going to run through some reasons that can contribute to tiredness. One of the key reasons that people might feel tired or lacking in energy is poor sleep. So this might seem obvious that, if you don't sleep well, you'll feel tired, but actually sometimes people don't realise that they're not sleeping well enough. So there's different factors when it comes to sleep. First of all, it's the quantity of your sleep, so how long you're actually sleeping for, and then we also have the quality of your sleep to consider as well. So in terms of the quantity of sleep, this can be a little bit individual, and it really does depend on your lifestyle and what you have going on. But generally, people should be aiming to sleep for between 7 and 9 hours a night. And I know myself, if I sleep any less than 7, but ideally 8, I really need to be sleeping that amount of time to help me feel at my best. So top tips in terms of sleeping is to try and get to bed a little bit earlier if you can, because another tip in terms of sleep hygiene is to try and keep quite a regular routine. So it's very, very tempting to have a lie-in at the weekend or on your days off from work, but actually by having quite an uneven sleep routine, that can actually make us feel worse and disrupt some of the hormones that we really rely on to keep us sleeping well and to make us feel more awake as well when we want to be awake. That's someone just saying they're joining us from Africa, so hello, welcome, thanks for joining. So yeah, as I was saying, in terms of your sleep routine, we really want to try and go to the bed at the same time each night and wake up the same time each morning, or we do risk from experiencing what we call social jet lag, and that just means that your hormones can be a little thrown out if you've got quite an uneven routine. And usually our days off and weekends and things risk doing this. But there is research to suggest that going to bed a little bit earlier in the evening is the most beneficial. And those first few hours of the night are very, they help us restore and repair in our bodies and support different systems of our body, including our immune system, which right now is actually very appropriate, I would say, to help support your immune system. Also, in terms of your immune system, the quantity of your sleep, again, is very important. And there's some research that I read recently that said if you drop your sleep to 4 hours from the optimal 8 hours, it can deplete your immune system by up to 70%. So that's just a massive drop in our immune functions. So obviously we need to do all we can to help support our immune functions. So that's the kind of duration of our sleep, but we also have sleep quality to consider as well. So this is a little bit harder to track. You could think that you're sleeping for 8 hours, you're doing all you can, but in some cases the quality of your sleep might not be optimal. There is different apps you can download, and you can use your Fitbit and Apple Watch and things to try and get a better idea of your sleep quality, because there's different your sleep basically goes through a sleep cycle, and there's different parts of your sleep, such as your REM stages, different stages that we need to meet. So these apps can help to give you a little bit of an idea of your sleep quality. But also there is other disruptors of sleep quality, such as alcohol and also some medications as well. So they're just ones to watch if you feel that you're sleeping long enough but you're waking up and feeling a bit groggy. Those are the main factors to consider. Also, if you're worried that you're struggling with your sleep, we do have a remedy that can help. So I do have some of the remedies here that I can just quickly show you as we go along and explain a little bit more about them. So this is our Dormazan Sleep, and it contains extracts of valerian and hops. So that's 2 herbal ingredients that work well together in order to help support sleep. And they do that by helping to basically promote some calming neurotransmitters. And these are chemical-like substances that interact with our nervous system, and also to help in order to help promote calm and to help us sleep. So the valerian hops works particularly quickly, and because this one is tincture form, a lot of our products are tinctures. And this means that they're absorbed very quickly into your system, and they work fairly quickly to help you whatever they're meant to do. So the valerian hops helps to calm you pretty quickly. So we do say you can take that just about half an hour before going to bed, and it should help you to feel more calm. Also, you can take an additional dose during the night if you feel you wake up. So people have different trouble with sleeping. Sometimes they have trouble switching off at first, especially if you've got quite an active mind, or other people find that they wake up too early in the morning. So you can take Dormazan at any one of those points. I'm just going to read some of the comments. Hi, Louise. We've got Louise commenting. She's saying she gets really tired after exercise. She always eats before the run, but it doesn't seem to help energy levels very much. So we're going to go on to a little bit more about diet and exercise in a sec, because as well as sleep, obviously, how we're eating is one of the big factors. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about blood sugar, and that could also be linked after exercise. So I'll just go on and talk a little bit more about that as well. So yeah, your blood sugar can be one of the other main reasons that we feel fatigued and lacking in energy. And quite often this can hit us, say, mid-afternoon or mid-morning, and that is a good indicator that blood sugar levels are to blame. So what happens in terms of your blood sugar, is as we eat sources of kind of quite concentrated sugar, you get a spike in your energy levels, but then actually you can get a dip depending on the source of the sugar. So sugar is obviously found in a variety of foods, and what we want to try and avoid if we can is simple sugars, or at least pair them with other elements which help to slow the release of those sugars into our bloodstream. So some common foods that can risk upsetting your blood sugar levels. First of all, I'm just going to run through a little list of some problem foods. First of all, we have cereals. So cereals tend to be quite high in simple sugars, and that's because they're a more processed food. So basically, it's not to say that we don't eat cereal at all, but what to do if we're eating more processed foods is to make sure that we're pairing them with good quality proteins and good quality fats, as these can help to slow the release of these sugars. Another common one is smoothies as well. So smoothies are brilliant, they're full of good quality fruits and often vegetables as well. But again, they're quite processed, and during that processing, we can risk stripping out some of the fibre content. So my advice when it comes to smoothies is to try and make them from home, and that means you can put in some whole fruits and vegetables. Also, your protein sources such as your yogurt and your nuts and seeds, you can whiz those up as well, and that just helps to create a more well balanced product that has the fibre and healthy fats even as well. So even a glug of kind of flaxseed oil, for example, helps to boost the healthy fats and the omega-3 content. So some of these food options, as I say with Louise's question, can come into play when it comes to exercise. So basically, we want to eat the right types of foods. So she says she gets very tired after the exercise, especially long runs, but she always eats before the run, but it doesn't seem to help. So that could be because perhaps Louise is picking sources of quite simple carbohydrates, and they're used up very quickly. So another common one that can cause this problem is kind of white carbs, so your white breads or your white rice, when really we would want to be trying to include more whole grains. So these will have more slow release carbs and a higher fibre content. So lots of your brown rice, your brown pasta, but also your whole grains, such as your oats, your brown rice, your flaxseed, your quinoa, your buckwheat, those kind of options. And these slow release carbs should help to have a more steady release to keep you more energized exercise. And even in your recovery, again, try to get those slow sources of carbs so you get a gentle, gradual release. And again, protein and healthy fats are good ones to include, as these help to slow the release of the carbohydrates as well. The other one, Louise, to mention when it comes to exercise is to keep properly hydrated. So dehydration is another huge factor when it comes to feeling low in energy. So that's another really important one that I do swear by myself. So the average person should be aiming to have at least 1.5 to 2 litres of water a day, and that should be throughout the day, and also limiting sources of caffeine as well. So this is one of the questions as a nutritionist that I ask often: how much water do you drink? And people say, yeah, I drink lots and lots, plenty of water, but actually it's all in the form of teas and coffees. And the caffeine can counter the positive effect slightly by acting as a bit of a diuretic. So really we want to be drinking plenty of plain water. And if you don't like the taste, some of my tips are to include some herbs or fresh fruit slices in it, just to give it a little bit of taste, but that won't take away from the benefits of the water. So that's just another tip, Louise, for your running. So thank you very much for your questions. I've just got some more questions coming in, so let me just see. We have one here: since I've been gluten-free, real trouble sleeping, and I wonder if I'm not having this the same weight of carb to make me sleepy. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, that there is so many factors that potentially could be upsetting your sleep. So it is sometimes a bit of a try and error to see what you've changed recently in your diet and lifestyle and what potentially could be contributing. So you say you've gone gluten-free, which generally, doesn't necessarily mean that we'll feel more tired, but I guess you just need to think what you've taken out of your diet and what you've included instead. So gluten tends to be in a lot of processed foods, so you would think that by taking it out, you would have some positives there, because generally it's your good whole foods that are useful. But you do mention about the carbohydrates that can help us to feel sleepy at night. So there is some properties in carbohydrates, including some amino acids, which are thought to help us feel a bit sleepy at night. But you can still get those proteins through lots of your whole grains, a lot of your beans and lentils, and also your meat and dairy if you're consuming some good quality whole fat dairy. So you should be able to make up for anything lost in other foods. So I would like to think it wouldn't be that, but you're doing the right thing by tracking, what you're eating and how you're feeling. So I would continue to do that, and there might be other reasons contributing, as I've mentioned, and I'll go into a bit more detail, but the stress anxiety side of things, for example, as that's really a big factor for people, especially going on in the world right now. So again, it might just be, as much as you're managing your diet, that including a little remedy, such as a dormizan or even the stress relief daytime. If you suspect that stress anxiety might be having an influence, you can take a little dose of that before you're due to go to sleep, or even during the day if anxiety levels are higher, and see if that helps make a difference. If you suspect that diet isn't really the leading cause. Let me just see the next question. Hello, thank you so much for your questions. I've got one from Mrs. Armitage Biddy. So she says, I ache all over when I wake up, despite sipping water when I wake in the night and sleeping enough hours. You've got a temper mattress, which doesn't allow me to turn it over without a lot of effort. Okay, so the aching, again, you mentioned the mattress, which is a good point, because aching in the morning could be structural. So if you continue to have these aches and pains and suspect it could be your mattress or the way you're sleeping, it might be worth considering seeing a cranial osteopath, and they can help just to diagnose if there's any issues with your spine or the structure of your body, which, as you say, might be contributing to the aching. It's brilliant that you're keeping up with the water. That's fantastic, because dehydration can cause aches and pains. But there's other issues as well, or factors that could potentially be contributing. And one thing that I would say to try is to try out a magnesium supplement. So magnesium, it's just a wonder nutrient. It's definitely one of my favourites. And that can easily contribute to not only sleep problems, but also aches and pains. It's very good for muscle relaxation and kind of muscle cramps. So it is one to watch if you're finding you're getting these aches and pains. I would definitely try some sort of magnesium supplement. So generally, magnesium, I tend to recommend maybe around 200 to 400 milligrams daily if you're wanting a kind of bigger dose of just magnesium, or it is available in some of our kind of all-in-one products. So like our balanced mineral drink, there's about 112 milligrams of magnesium in there. So if you are having quite a plant-based diet, it should be fairly rich in magnesium. So lots of fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and things like that. And then sometimes an all-round product with just some magnesium can be enough, because there's vitamin D and zinc and other nutrients in there, which are beneficial as well. So hopefully that helps answer your question, gives you a few ideas as to what could be contributing there in terms of your aches and pains. Let me just see, thank you. There's someone there that's reading Alfred Vogel's book, and is successfully curing inflammation and infection. That's just amazing. Obviously, all his books and resources are just fantastic, and we are trying to channel some of his advice and tips and everything that we do today as well. So that's just lovely that you're benefiting from the channel as well and all our resources. So as I say, we're doing these live events, but we also have our lovely menopause expert Eileen, who does weekly video blogs. So every Monday she's giving lots of women tips and advice on the menopause. And throughout our website as well, we've got tons of information, lots of written blogs that you can basically search for any kind of ailment or health issue, and hopefully there'll be some kind of nice holistic tips and advice there for you as well. Let me just see what else. So we have Susan, who said she used to sleep really well, but now she's experiencing some interrupted sleep. She's going to bed at 12, waking at 3, then again at 5. And, understandably, she's feeling really tired. So again, there's a few different reasons that could be contributing to disturbed sleep. So Susan doesn't mention how old she is. Okay, she's just commented there. She spoke to Eileen. So perhaps menopause could be a bit of a factor there. So I will, there's Susan there. Yeah, she's 49. So Susan, if you don't mind, I'll just talk a little bit about menopause. Because if you spoke to Eileen, I suspect that menopause could be having a part to play. And unfortunately, sleep issues during the menopause are really common. So during the menopause, basically, there's lots of changes going on in our bodies, and primarily hormonal changes, and your body sees this as a bit of a stress. So although you might not be feeling stressed in your body, in terms of how your body is, there's changes going on, and as I say, primarily hormonal. But because we have estrogen receptors, so estrogen is the main hormone that changes as we go through menopause, and we have estrogen receptors all over our body. So that includes in your brain, through your nerves, all over your muscles, throughout your digestive tract. Literally every inch of your body has these estrogen receptors, and unfortunately, that's why menopause can create such a raft of different symptoms. So we do know that, especially because of the effects of the receptors throughout your brain and your nervous system, we can struggle more with symptoms of stress and disturbed sleep. But also, as I say, it can affect every inch of your body. So you might have more digestive complaints, for example, and we also know that digestive complaints are also linked with poor sleep. So that is another area that I was going to touch on today if we have time. So obviously, when it comes to menopause, the symptoms are very individual. So it is up to you to decide to some degree what symptoms are troubling you most. But I can recommend our Menopause Support, which is a very general all-round product for menopause. And this contains a source of fermented soy isoflavones. And this ingredient acts as very gently estrogenic in your body. And that just helps to tick all the little estrogen receptors that I've talked about and help to gently stimulate them, rather than the fluctuating hormones kind of stimulating them intermittently or too much at once or too little at other times. And that's when we got all these symptoms. So by taking the Menopause Support, you're getting a kind of steady flow of very gentle stimulation, and that usually can help to settle some of the symptoms. So I always say to women, if you have quite a number of symptoms relating to the menopause, then a Menopause Support is a really good all-rounder. But obviously then, or instead of that, you can add in some other products in terms of supplements to help target some of your individual symptoms. But as I say, please get in touch either today or via the link to ask your questions, whether it's menopause or anything else. I'll try and work through some of your comments today, but I might not get round to them all. But we'll definitely get back to you if there's any that we haven't managed to get a hold of today. So let me just scroll up and see some other comments, because there's lots coming in now. So thank you so much for all your comments and conversation. So yeah, you're going to try the magnesium, Mrs. Armitage Biddy. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me see. So we have Joyce James coming in. Thank you, Joyce. So she's saying, have you any suggestions for early morning fatigue during perimenopause? And this is for someone on time-restricted eating and a plant-based diet. You're already taking a good quality multivitamin, vitamin D, and omega-3. So again, early morning fatigue, it could be a number of things. Again, it could be your blood sugar levels. So we do, just what I was saying about the blood sugar levels, we do, especially in the morning, we want to get a good nutritious breakfast to help set us up for the day and to help to manage the blood sugar levels. And again, caffeine isn't the one to go for because like sugar, caffeine basically helps to stimulate the release of sugar into your bloodstream. But the effects are quite short-lived, so you often get a spike of energy initially, and then you can experience an energy drop. So I guess a good quality breakfast is really important to help support your energy levels. Again, also if you are restricting how you're eating, it's more important than ever to make sure that we aren't having any high glycemic foods. We're not just trying to restrict the high glycemic index foods. Again, just to support your blood sugar as much as possible. Also, again, back to the hydration, that's really important as well. So there is lots of research that the intermittent fasting can actually be really beneficial for your blood sugar levels and other health issues. So that's fantastic if you're able to keep that up. But make sure that you're properly hydrated during the times that you aren't eating. But no, it's brilliant that you're able to try out the intermittent fasting. There's lots of research there. Also, just back to diet as well. If you are kind of limiting when you're eating, then it's important to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients and of course that you're eating enough as well. So I was going to talk to you a bit more about some other nutrient deficiencies that can also contribute to making us feel more tired. So we've talked about magnesium. As I say, it's an amazing one to make sure that you're getting enough of. But there's some other ones that are quite linked with energy and fatigue as well. So one of those is iron. So iron's very often linked with energy and fatigue, or lack of, should I say. And it is quite often in a lot of products that you can then take to help boost your energy levels. But I would say just to be a little bit cautious because we don't always need lots of extra iron. And what I would say to you is, if you suspect that you could benefit from some extra iron, I would ask that you go to your doctor and ask them just to check for anemia, because it is mostly beneficial to take iron if you are actually anemic. So ask your doctor just to check your iron levels, and also to check your ferritin levels as well, because the ferritin is the storage form of our iron. So that really gives us a good indication of our stores of iron, and that can tell us, how deficient we might be, because your body is just so clever. Like it's working hard to regulate your blood glucose levels, it's also working hard to keep your iron levels quite stable. So a blood test might suggest that your iron levels are fine in your blood at that time. But really we want to look at your ferritin levels to check that you've got a good store there as well. And if they're low, it could suggest that you've used up those stores. So I would check that you're anemic first rather than taking too much iron, because it's not always too good for us if we take too much when we don't really need to, especially men. So that's just really in terms of supplements of iron, but obviously an iron-rich diet is really beneficial as well. So yeah, that's someone just talking about the iron in terms of the foods that you can eat with iron in. So as always with supplements, nutrients, we would say to try and get it through your diet initially, and then the supplements are just really an add-on to that. So in terms of iron, we have different types of iron. So we have heme iron, we call it, and that's more found in your kind of meat-based products. And this type of iron is particularly well absorbed, but that's not to say we can't get iron sufficiently through your vegetables and your plant-based foods. So that is absolutely possible as well. And that's where we have your non-heme iron sources. And these are found quite readily in your kind of green leafy vegetables, such as your spinach, your kale, and then your broccoli, your cruciferous vegetables, but also lots of your beans and lentils and legumes. So again, back to lots of those lovely whole grains as well. And they are fantastic sources of iron as well. Just another tip, if you're trying to up your iron intake and your absorption, is to pair your iron with vitamin C. And this helps to increase your absorption. So perhaps just a little glass of orange juice or something can really help to boost your iron if you're trying to desperately get enough through your diet. So in terms of other nutrients that I wanted to touch on, vitamin D is also one that I really wanted to talk about today, because especially in the UK, with our lack of sunshine, I would say, sometimes we can struggle to get enough. And the government is now advising that we take supplements at least during the winter months. So in terms of supplements, again, we've got our balanced mineral drink and also our immune support products that have some vitamin D in if you're looking for a supplement. They both contain 5 micrograms of vitamin D. Although the government says that you can take up to, safely up to 10 micrograms, that is actively recommended. But to be honest, personally, I don't often recommend huge doses of vitamin D because it is a fat-soluble nutrient, which means we can store it in our bodies. So personally, I think 5 micrograms every day is sufficient. And obviously then you have, your exposure to sunshine, at least during the summer months. Hopefully we get some sunshine. And be sure to try and expose a little bit of skin as well, because we literally do make vitamin D through our skin, so through the exposure of the sunlight on our skin. And so where we can have short sleeves, shorts on, just to try and get a little bit of natural sunlight. And we can actually store for some time if we get some good sun exposure. You also have some food sources of vitamin D, but it is a little bit limited in terms of the food sources. So we have oily fish, eggs, also mushrooms are good sources of vitamin D. But generally the sunlight is the best source. And as I say, if it's a little bit limited during the winter months, I would recommend taking a supplement. Because vitamin D, again, in terms of the minerals, magnesium is probably the wonder mineral for me. In terms of the vitamins, vitamin D is the wonder vitamin for me. So it's amazing for energy levels, tiredness, fatigue, supporting sleep, supporting your immune functions as well, which again is just so relevant now. So I would definitely try to make sure you're getting enough D. And again, your doctor can test by taking a quick blood test to see what your vitamin D levels are like. So I would definitely recommend doing that, just so you can be rest assured, or you can consider taking a supplement. So that's Joanne McLaughlin, just touching on what I was saying. She's saying, I'm quite concerned to take supplements such as D3, iron and magnesium in case I'm not deficient. What supplements are harmful if taken in excess, and what D3 amount should we take? So thanks, Joanne. It's such a sensible question, and I really do like to touch on this. So as you kind of point out, some supplements we need to be a little bit more cautious with than others. So D3 and iron, the two I've just mentioned there, are actually ones that we need to be probably the most cautious with. And that is basically because we can risk storing them in our bodies. So we have fat-soluble vitamins, and that includes vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. And because they're fat-soluble, it means that you're able to store them literally within your adipose tissue or your liver, for example. So over time, if we're taking more and more supplements, then the levels can start to build up in the body. Iron is another one of those that we can store. And in women who generally have monthly periods and things, then it's not such a great risk that we'll store too much. But for men, especially who don't have a way to lose iron, I would be cautious with taking too much iron unless you know you need to. But for the majority of these ones that we've mentioned, your doctor can check your levels, so I wouldn't be hesitant in asking them for a test. The magnesium isn't so risky. I mean, at very high levels, especially magnesium, you might notice a little bit of diarrhea or a little bit of tummy upset if you took too much. So that would be an indication that you were taking too high a dose. But in terms of storing the magnesium, it's not such a big risk. And then your other vitamins, such as your vitamin B, your B vitamins, there's a few, and your vitamin C as well. These are called water-soluble nutrients. So generally, we would excrete any extra if you go to the loo, for example. And actually, B vitamins, you'll notice when you go to the loo that your pee is quite bright yellow, kind of luminous coloured. So that's an indication that you are losing some. So again, it can be a sign that you're taking enough. So as I say, the water-soluble nutrients you don't need to worry so much about. So thank you, Joanne. That's a great question. And she just followed it up with a question about, can you take your balance and your immune support together? So we get this quite a lot, whether you can take nutrients together. So with most of our nutrients, we do specialise in herbal remedies generally, but in the products with our nutrients, we never have huge high amounts. So you'll see on the back of the pack that we tell you roughly what the recommended daily amount is and how much we've included. So in our balance, for example, we have approximately about 30% of our RDA of most of the nutrients, including your magnesium and your calcium. And as I say, it's exactly the same for the immune support. So they would technically be fine to take together. And as I say, the vitamin D is only 5 micrograms in each one. So that would take you up to 10 micrograms, which is actually what the government is recommending, especially during the winter months. So they would actually be fine to take together, those two there. Generally, we do say not to take too many products together, especially if they're for the same ailment. What we would say is to take one at a time and see how you get on. So it might be, for those two in particular, it might be that the nutrients and the immune support are enough for you to make you feel better and to help target any deficiencies that you might have. But what I would say, if you're worried about your immune system, is to perhaps take the immune support first, see how you get on, and then you could then add the balanced mineral drink in a little bit later if you felt that you needed that extra boost. But as I say, the vitamin D and the magnesium in particular for me are fantastic. So even if you wanted to take the immune support and an additional magnesium supplement, that would be absolutely fine to do. So those should be fine together. So thank you, Joanne, for raising that little question. Let me just see what else you've got. Yeah, so someone asked about A. Vogel's books. So after I've finished, basically we'll give you any links to products and books and resources that I've mentioned throughout the chat, so we can get more information to you, Susan. So thanks for that. So we've just got another little menopause question, which I can just answer quickly, and then we'll get back onto more energy topics that I have lined up. So Sarah Jane Harrison, hi Sarah, thanks for your question. She's asking if dry eyes can be linked to the menopause. So absolutely, unfortunately, again, the menopause can just create a whole raft of symptoms, and dry eyes is absolutely one. So again, I mentioned these little estrogen receptors that go all over your body, and your eyes are no exception. And estrogen has a lot of benefits for women. So when your receptors are being stimulated correctly, then generally we feel quite healthy and happy, and all areas of our bodies are working optimally. But as our estrogen levels start to drop off, and these receptors aren't being stimulated, that's when we can become more prone to some of these issues. And we know estrogen is particularly good for helping our skin and our mucous membranes to stay quite plump and moist. And as I say, when the levels of this hormone start to drop off, that's when we can start experiencing some dryness. So in terms of trying to manage that symptom, as I was saying before, it really depends if you're getting quite a wide variety of different symptoms. If you feel that you've got quite a long list of different menopausal symptoms, then I would say to try our Menopause Support. And that's a general estrogen support, so it can help to target the wide range of symptoms relating to the low estrogen. But if it is just quite one particular one particular symptom that you're experiencing, such as the dryness, a couple of things I would recommend. This one isn't one of our products, but I'm more than happy to recommend other companies' products, if they're good and they're going to help our customers. So it's omega-7 sea buckthorn oil, and this one in particular that I know of that's very good is done by a company called Pharmanord. And this omega-7 is just fantastic for helping to target the dryness that women experience throughout their mucous membranes, so their eyes, down below, throughout their digestive tract. You've got these mucous membranes everywhere, even in your lungs, so wheeziness and different symptoms can crop up. So the omega-7, that's an internal product that you can take. But also for the dry eyes, we have eye drops as well. So yeah, the Avogel eye drops, we have the extra dry nourishing eye drops. So that's something else, obviously, just to use topically. Then just in terms of diet, a couple of things we've mentioned is supporting your body from the inside out. So keeping properly hydrated, and as well as omega-7, which is more in a supplement form, having enough omega-3 also helps to target dryness. So that would be your oily fish and your flaxseed, your chia seeds as well. So hopefully that helps with that one. Thank you very much for that question, Sarah. So we have Lynn as well. Just one more menopause question. She's asking about menopause. Can it change smells from the body, down below, etc.? And yes, again, estrogen has a lot to answer for. So basically, estrogen can affect the balance of bacteria, both within the vagina and also the digestive tract. And in terms of digestion, I'm a big fan of sorting digestion. It links to so many other symptoms and issues. So in terms of supporting your good bacteria, there's the topic of probiotics. So just answering your question, Lynn, but also linking back to the energy topic, I'll just run you through what I would suggest to help support your digestion. Because as I say, digestion is just linked to so many other parts of your body, including your mood, your weight balance, absolutely everything, as well as obviously getting all the nutrients that we've just talked about for actually making the most of getting the nutrients from the diet that you're eating. So first of all, in terms of digestion, my top tip is to chew properly. And it sounds so simple, but I can guarantee that not many of us give chewing much of a second thought. So chewing properly helps to obviously break down the food that you're eating properly. But also it helps, as early as your mouth, you have digestive enzymes So salivary amylase is starting to break down the food we eat, which is just amazing. So starting to break down the food you eat as early as your mouth, and that gives you the best chance for absorbing all those amazing nutrients. So first of all, chewing well. Also, I've talked a lot about water, but my tip is to try and keep your water intake a little bit separate from your food, because if we drink water alongside our meals, that can risk diluting all those precious digestive enzymes that we rely on so much. So I tend to say to drink water maybe 10 to 15 minutes before or after your meals to help avoid that. Because then when we get to the stomach, we really, really want strong stomach acid to help start to break down the food that you've just ingested. So this is a common one to consider, because nowadays acid reducing medications from the doctor are becoming really well used and quite readily prescribed. And this is absolutely fine for short-term use. So if someone's struggling with symptoms of acid reflux, for example, but actually long-term, as a nutritionist and coming from a naturopathic background, we do worry that we really need stomach acid, so we don't really want to be reducing it on a long-term basis. So we really need stomach acid, A, to break down the food that you're eating to help absorb all those lovely nutrients, but B, also to help keep pathogens at bay. So your stomach acid is actually acting as one of your first lines of defense against infections and bugs. And this is where it links into the probiotics, because you then have a specific balance of bacteria that runs through the length of your digestive tract. And if our stomach acid isn't sufficient, then we can risk having that balance a little bit off. So that's when the good levels of bacteria are more likely to drop. The bad bacteria can start to take over, and we end up in a state called dysbiosis, and that means this balance isn't quite right. And this dysbiosis can translate into other areas of the body. Just back to Lynn's question. So basically, we want to support the stomach initially, but then we can also think about introducing some probiotics as well. But I wouldn't go in with probiotics too quickly, because basically if the environment throughout the digestive tract isn't quite right, if we just take probiotic supplements, then the actual bacteria contained in these supplements aren't likely to survive. So my best advice would be to support your stomach first. Then you can think about a prebiotic and then a probiotic. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of the products in terms of some of those names. So in terms of your stomach, to help support your stomach acid, we would want to try some Digestive Bitters. And some of my top recommendations there include a couple of our products, including Centurium and also Yarrow. And these are very, very bitter in taste. And that taste, again, they're tincture form, so you can actually taste them. And that bitterness helps to stimulate the secretions of your stomach acid. And that's what we need, strong stomach acid and also to break down the food that we eat. Next step is the prebiotics. So prebiotics basically help to act as a kind of source of food, if you like, for our probiotics, which are the good bacteria themselves. So one of our products that we have is our Mulkazan. And the Mulkazan is rich in L+ lactic acid, and that helps to support the pH in which our good bacteria need to survive. They help to lower the pH in the large intestine. So I would tend to say to take the prebiotic Mulkazan for a few weeks perhaps, and then you can try to introduce some of the probiotics. And again, we don't do probiotics in our range, but I'm happy enough to recommend them. And I swear by a company called Optibac. And they do a lovely range of probiotics for all different ailments. You have a kind of everyday or an extra strength one just for general health. But back to Lynn's question, they also have a female probiotic specifically, and they also have an immune system supporting probiotic, which again is very current right now. And all their products have been researched to determine that, first of all, the probiotics survive, but also that the different strains of bacteria help different areas of the body. So hopefully that helps answer the question in terms of the bacteria, Lynn. So thank you. Let me just see. So Anne-Marie's saying that she's constantly tired in the afternoon. So again, that probably links back to the blood sugar levels, which is just so important. So that's really, again, going back to if it's happening in the afternoon, you feel that slump. It's thinking what you've had for lunch in terms of, is it balanced? Is there good quality carbs, good quality protein, and good quality fats in there, and also trying to limit caffeine. So people are often quite tempted by caffeine kind of early, mid-morning, mid-afternoon. I've spoken a little bit about fats. Well, I've mentioned including healthy fats, but I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the role of healthy fats in helping us to keep at our best and keep us healthy. Because unfortunately, it's been a kind of a common misconception that fats are bad and we need to have low-fat products and low-fat this and low-fat that. And actually, fat is just so important to have for good health and even good weight balance. Although some people might, struggle to believe that, but it genuinely is. So I'm very cautious, and I tell our customers to be cautious if they see low fat or even low calorie, but we'll stick on fats for now. Low fat foods in the shops. First of all, it suggests that the product's quite processed because the fat has been removed. But also, if we remove fat, then we have to replace it with something else. And, the only macronutrients are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And unfortunately, protein tends to be a little bit more expensive. So you can bet that in a lot of the low-fat products, they contain a higher quantity of carbohydrates. And as we know, the lower quality carbohydrates, the higher the simple sugar content. So I would be wary of low-fat products, and we do want a good fat content. So in terms of kind of healthy fat options, we have avocados, obviously a brilliant fruit and vegetable option, technically a fruit, but also lots of our nuts and seeds are really rich in healthy fats and your protein as well as an added benefit. In terms of oils and how to cook and things, I would be wary of some of the more processed vegetable oils, and you'll see these in big, massive plastic vats in the shops, and they just aren't as good quality, and they are kind of offsetting the balance of good fats that we really want to achieve. So generally, we want to try and achieve a better ratio of omega-3 and omega-9 compared to omega-6. And that is what a lot of the kind of cheaper vegetable and seed oils provide. It's lots of omega-6. So too much omega-6 can be a bit more inflammatory in the body. So we want to try and up our omega-3 content instead. So that's it. As I say, lots of your nuts and seeds contain omega-3. But in terms of your oils to cook with, I'm a big fan of extra virgin olive oil. So that's a good one to include. Also, you have your dairy products. So people often shy away from dairy for whatever reason, but actually, if you're going to have some dairy, then I wouldn't shy away from your good quality whole fat dairy options. Again, your reduced fat options have just been a bit more processed, and for me, we want a little bit of dairy fats in your diet, and to just generally have a better balance, we do need those fats. So again, Anne-Marie mentioned she's feeling tired in the afternoon. Try and include a good source of healthy fats in your lunch, and hopefully that should help to better support your blood glucose levels. Just gonna have a little drink. Let's see some more questions coming in. We've got Alice Sorry to hear that Alice is struggling with fibromyalgia, and she also mentions some mood issues as well. What I would say is, as much as we want to try and answer some questions, sometimes when they're a bit more complicated, we really want to ask a few questions back and forward. So Alice, if you could please contact us on our link and submit your form, and myself or one of our health advisors will be in touch. We just like to ask a bit more questions in order to help advise you as best we can if your case is a bit more complicated or it's a little bit sensitive. But we'll be sure to reply to you, Alice. So thank you very much for commenting. So we have Angel B just asking if our soy isoflavones product is safe to take with her arthritis medication. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. There should be no contraindications there at all. So that should be perfectly fine to take. Let me just see what else I had on my list to talk about. Yeah, just one other thing I wanted to mention actually, which again might be very relevant right now, is post-viral fatigue. So obviously with everything going on at the moment, and just generally we're going into cold and flu season as it is. We have had a lot of, cold and flus basically are primarily caused by viruses. And obviously having a virus, depending on the type, but most viruses will take some toll on the body, and that can leave us really struggling with fatigue as a result of the virus. Because when we are exposed to any cold and flu infection, any virus or even bacteria, your body is working super hard to help fight that virus and to help get you back to a kind of normal state. And again, depending on the type of virus, some can take a bigger toll than others. But I'm sure most of us have experienced that after being ill, you can just feel totally wiped out, and mainly that is because your immune system is working so hard to try and fight it off and to try and keep you healthy. What was I just going to say on that point? Yeah, it can take a long time for your immune system to get things back to normal, because your body has to put in so much energy into that process, which it wouldn't normally have. Normally your immune system is just ticking away nicely in the background, but obviously if your immune system working really hard to fight this, then it uses up a lot of energy and ultimately we feel very tired. So things to do and to take during that time, again, it goes back to the hydration. You need to properly keep hydrated to support your energy levels, but also in case you've had any other symptoms such as fever, vomiting, diarrhea, any of these symptoms that can come with fever, and that can make us even more dehydrated and affect your energy levels even further. Also, just from a practical point of view, is to take it easy and not try to do too much. So back to quite a holistic way of thinking, but you need to listen to your body. And if you're still feeling really tired and really out of it, then please don't rush back to doing too much, because that's a common mistake and that can leave us feeling even more run down. If your body's quite stressed and quite vulnerable, actually it can make you even more at risk of getting a subsequent infection, and we call these secondary infections, and quite often these can be caused by bacteria, and your immune system is just struggling by this point, or there's been damage to, say, the lining of your respiratory tract or something, where the bacteria can more easily get in. They can break down those lines of defense, and it can make you ill more easily. So I would just say, if the fatigue is likely to be post-viral fatigue, then please just take it easy. But of course, there is some symptoms of there's some supplements as well you can take to help support you during this time. And our number one, I've got it here actually, I've got it in both forms, is our Echinoforce. So I've got it in the tincture and the tablet form. So we have available in both forms, depending on what suits you best. And the Echinoforce can help to target the can help to target the symptoms at the time, so to reduce the severity and duration of your symptoms if you're still struggling with the infection itself, but also longer term, the echinacea can help to support your resistance, so to help support your immune system in working optimally and helping to protect you from further infections. So I absolutely would recommend the echinacea if you have or have had any sort of infection. So even if you start to feel better, I would continue on with echinacea just that little bit longer to help support your system. Then, depending on the symptoms, there's other herbs such as plantago. Plantago is quite good for congestion, or your immune support contains nasturtium, which is particularly good for your lungs. So again, depending on your symptoms, you might want to branch out and take another couple of separate remedies, but the echinacea is a good all-rounder for your immune system. So that is covering that, which just wanted to mention. I'm just going to see if there's any more questions before we just start to wrap up. Yeah, so Ruth is asking, can you take echinophores every day like a vitamin, or just when you're feeling unwell? So that's a brilliant question, Ruth. Thank you, and I can just answer that now. So basically, echinacea is licensed for when you have a cold and flu infection. So it's an absolute must. If you feel a cold or flu coming on, definitely take it then. Particularly our throat spray. I don't have one here to show you, but our echinophore throat spray is fantastic. If you get a little niggle in your throat, quite a lot of the time infections start in the throat, and honestly, it can just really help to keep things at bay. So absolutely, at the first sign of infection, you definitely need to start taking it. But actually, there is research to suggest that taking it a little bit longer term is completely safe, and especially during high-risk times, I quite often recommend it. Or if you're feeling a bit run down, you feel like you could be a little bit more vulnerable. So sometimes during the winter months, for example, when it is cold and flu season, I say to take it just for a few months at a time, even just to offer that little bit of extra support. So yeah, you can take it a little bit longer term if you're feeling you need a bit of extra support. So that's Ruth there. Louise is just getting back to this. Yeah, so Louise is just saying thanks for your question. You'll try your tips. And will eating during a run help to keep our energy levels up? So it could do. It depends what kind of run you're doing, how strenuous and things. Basically, when you're engaging lots of your muscles and your lungs and everything, you're in your running mode, that engages your sympathetic nervous system, and basically your body is focusing on those symptoms to keep you running, to keep the oxygen flowing through your body. So at this time when you're running, your digestive system isn't functioning probably as best as it could do when you're at rest. So all I would say is to try not to have anything that's too heavy on your digestive system. So sometimes I'm more of a liquid, it maybe like a good quality smoothie or something, which can help to give you a quicker fix of energy, but isn't anything too heavy on your digestive system, which could risk making you feel a little bit queasy or something. So yeah, if you feel you need an additional boost, then by all means have something quite light. You get lots of kind of energy gels and things like those throughout health food stores. They are usually quite high sugar, so quite a quick fix of energy. So just be cautious with those, and don't take too much at once. But again, for me, it's back to the slow release sources of carbs and your protein, your fat. So a smoothie is probably a good go-to for me. Just get another question there coming in. Can I take calcium with dairy? So yeah, calcium is one of the nutrients that I've not really mentioned so much. So I'll just quickly go over that right now. So yeah, dairy is obviously quite a good source of calcium, but we shouldn't forget about other sources of calcium as well, and that is again through lots of your plant-based sources, such as your fruit and vegetables, your nuts and seeds. Again, particularly your leafy greens and your nuts and your seeds are really good sources of calcium. So we shouldn't worry that dairy is the only source of calcium. There is other sources out there. And for me personally, the plant-based sources are amazing in that you got lots of other nutrients as well. So magnesium for one. You'll get much more of that in your vegetables and your nuts and seeds compared to something like your dairy. So basically, in terms of taking calcium supplements alongside dairy, which is a good source of calcium, I would just be cautious and question, again, as we were saying earlier, if you definitely need calcium supplements. Although it is in our balanced mineral drink, for example, it's in relatively low amounts. So it's only about 30% of your RDA, which in terms of supplements, I wouldn't tend to recommend much more, because as well as getting it through the balance, if you've got a good balanced diet, you should generally be getting enough calcium. It is one of those nutrients that generally we can get enough through our diet. So I would just be a little bit cautious. Calcium, we were talking earlier about which supplements do we need to be cautious with. At very high level, calcium isn't great for your heart and your circulation. Obviously, it's brilliant for our bone health, but in excess, it can risk accumulating in places that we don't really want it, such as in our blood vessels. So I would just be cautious. Basically, just make sure that you're taking it for the right reasons. Perhaps, if your doctor's recommended it, absolutely. Or if you've got an underlying bone condition, absolutely. Calcium, we need sufficient calcium for healthy bones, but just be cautious as to why you're taking it. So I think that's coming to the end of the question. Sorry if I've missed any along the way, but as I say, I will work hard to get back to anyone, and we have posted a link for you to able to submit your question. If it's a bit lengthier or a bit more sensitive, I'll take more time in getting back to you and asking some questions back and forward. So I'll just quickly have a little skim over some of the points. Some of my kind of top tips, I guess, for tackling the tiredness, and we'll wrap things up. So I mentioned the sleep, and I mentioned to you Dormezan, as well as all my other sleep hygiene tips. I mentioned dehydration, top tip from me to drink your water. I talked a lot about blood sugar throughout the session, so your complex carbs, your protein, your fats, nice balanced diet. We talked a lot about nutrients, some different nutrients that can help, but being a little bit cautious that you aren't taking too much, or if in any doubt that you need certain nutrients, don't be afraid to go to your doctor just for a quick check, and they can help with that. Digestion is a big must from me to support your digestion and to ensure that you're able to absorb all your nutrients and help support the balance of bacteria throughout your system. I mentioned the post-viral fatigue, so it's completely normal to feel a bit tired and run down after an infection, so just give yourself time to recover, and we do have the echinacea to help support you during that time, and also beyond if you need a little bit more support. And we've also talked a lot about menopause as well, so just some of the effects of the fluctuating estrogen. But my go-to product for that is the Menopause Support, but obviously you've got lots of other products you can take as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, if you're watching this after, please leave your comments, and also please subscribe to our Avogo channel as well. So just hit the little bell icon, and that means you'll be notified when we're doing more lives, and if we upload any new videos, such as Eileen every week with all her menopause tips. Thanks, see you all soon.